There's a root growing wild in ditches and fence rows across half this country that tastes like a roasted chestnut soaked in honey, and almost nobody digs it. It doesn't need planting or watering, and it survives drought, poor dirt, and the kind of neglect that would kill a potato patch twice over. Native peoples were growing it in gardens on this land before a single European ever set foot on the shore. But walk into any grocery store in America and you will not find it. And the reason has nothing to do with the plant. The plant is the Jerusalem artichoke, and both of those words are wrong. Above ground, it's a sunflower, 6 to 10 feet of it, with a rough, hairy leaf that feels like sandpaper when you run your thumb across it. Underground, at the end of long white runners, it grows knobby red tubers that look like a piece of ginger root that got into a fight. That's the crop, not the seed head, the root. In July of 1605, a French explorer named Samuel de Champlain came ashore on Cape Cod and walked into a native garden. He wrote down what was growing in it: beans, edible squashes of several sizes, tobacco and roots the people cultivated there, which he said had the taste of artichokes. Champlain sent samples back to France, where inside of a few years they were selling in the Paris markets as a delicacy. And the name the people on that shore used for it wasn't Jerusalem anything. The accounts recorded as sunroot. I'm Wes Kingfisher. What I bring you comes from the old accounts, the skills native peoples used on this land for thousands of years, gathered from historical records and traditional knowledge and told the way an elder would tell it, plain, slow, and in the right order. The old ones knew things we've nearly forgotten. So listen close. Now, about that name. There is nothing about this plant from Jerusalem, and it is not related to an artichoke in any way. The best explanation anybody has is that Italian speakers called it girasole, their word for sunflower, because the flower turns toward the sun. English ears heard girasole, said Jerusalem, and 400 years later, we are still saying it. Then in the 1960s, a California produce seller named Frida Kaplan gave it a third name, sunchoke, because Jerusalem artichoke was not moving off the shelf. 2 rebrands in 4 centuries, and the honest name was the first one. The Cree beside Lake Superior called it Askipaw, the Huron north of Lake Ontario, Skibwan, the Hidatsa, Kaksha, and every one of those peoples grew it on purpose, intended ground, right alongside the corn. Now what I'm showing you today has its own page in the Native American way of the garden, because the old ones grew food on this ground for 10,000 years with nothing in a bag at all. 10 chapters in 3 parts, set down plain. How to read your own dirt before you ever put a spade in it. The 3 sisters, corn and beans and squash, grown together the way they were meant to be. Building black dirt out of what's already on the place, saving your own seed, and putting the garden to bed so the ground comes back richer. If you're worn out from buying bags of fertilizer that only make the soil need more bags next spring, that's what this one saves you. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So let's go find one. While all that was happening in the history books, the plant itself never stopped spreading. And there is a decent chance there's a stand of it within a few miles of wherever you're sitting right now. You look for it in late summer and early fall, when almost everything else in the field has quit. It is a sunflower, but the flower is small, only 2 to 4 inches across. A bright yellow daisy with a yellow center, and there will be dozens of them on one plant. The stalk runs 6 to 10 feet tall and goes woody down near the bottom. The leaves are the tell. They are lance-shaped, thick, and coarse, and the top of the leaf is scratchy, like fine sandpaper under your thumb. Nothing else standing that tall in a wet ditch has that leaf, and where you find it tells you something about who moved it there. Riverbanks and creek bottoms, fence rows, the edge of a plowed field, old roadbeds, and very often the caved-in cellar hole of a home place that has been gone a long time because somebody planted it by the door and it never left. Here's the discipline on this one, and I want you to actually do this part. Mark it while it is standing and in bloom. Tie a strip of cloth around the stalk, drop a pin on your phone, count fence posts, whatever you will still trust in 3 months, because you are not going to dig it in September. You're going to dig it in December, and in December, that plant is a dead gray stick in a row of other dead gray sticks, and one dead stick looks exactly like the next one. The sunflower family is not hiding a poisonous twin for you here, but that only protects you if you know for certain what you are standing over. If you did not see it flower, do not dig it, and stay off the shoulders of sprayed roads and out of runoff ditches, however good the stand looks from the truck. Take only what you need, leave the rest to come back, and follow the current tested guidelines for wild harvest in your own state. Now, when you do dig, dig wide. The stalk is not where the food is. Those runners push the tubers out a foot or more past where the stem comes up. So if you dig a tight circle around the stalk, you will come up with almost nothing and decide the whole thing was a lie. Cut the dead stalks off near the ground first so they are out of your way. Then start your fork a good long stride out from the plant and work in toward it. And go gentle, because these bruise like a peach. Here is something else worth knowing when you get them up in the light. If your tubers came out long, skinny, red-skinned, and scattered all over on the ends of those runners, you have got the wild type, the same plant the old accounts describe. The fat, pale ones that cluster up close to the stalk are the selected garden varieties, bred that way over generations for easier digging. Both eat the same. The red wild ones just make you work for it, and they are the ones you will actually find growing free. So why December? Why not dig in September, when the ground is soft and the digging is easy, because of what this plant does with its summer, and this is the whole secret behind the honey. A potato stores its summer as starch. This one does not. It stores it as inulin, which is a long chain built out of fructose. And inulin on its own is not sweet at all. Dig one in September, and you get a bland, watery, faintly bitter thing, and you will wonder what all the fuss was about. But cold takes those chains apart. Frost kills the tops. The plant starts breaking that long chain down, and what is left behind in the root is simple sugar. Nobody added the honey. The cold released it. So the season clock on this plant runs backwards from every other root you grow. You wait for the first hard frost. Then you dig, and you keep digging right on through the winter, all the way until the ground breaks up in the spring. And the longer they sit out there cold, the sweeter they come up. Now let me tell you what you have actually got when you carry a basketful up to the house. Raw, sliced thin, it is crisp and wet, and it snaps like a water chestnut. Nutty, faintly sweet. That is a fine thing to have in a winter salad when there is nothing green left anywhere. But roasted is where it earns the name on the front of this video. Scrub them, do not peel them, cut them thick, and put them in a low oven for a long time. 325 degrees for an hour and a half will get you there. And slower is better still. What comes out is soft and creamy in the middle, browned and crackling at the edges, and sweet in a way that tastes cooked in rather than poured on. Chestnut and honey, and something underneath it like the heart of a globe artichoke. And the old accounts describe a good deal more being done with them than roasting. They were eaten raw, they were boiled, they were roasted in the coals, and they were dried hard and pounded into a meal that would keep in a storage pit all winter and go into a soup in the middle of February. That last one matters. A root that keeps badly in a basket keeps beautifully once it is dried, and the old ones worked that out a long time before anybody had a pantry. So it grows itself, it feeds you in winter, and it tastes like a roasted chestnut. Which brings us to the obvious question. If this plant is that good, where is it? Why is nobody planting it? There are 4 answers. Here's the first one, and it is the reason most people who try this plant only try it once. Remember that inulin. Your body has no key for it. It goes through the stomach untouched, through the small intestine untouched, and it arrives down in the lower gut, still whole, where the bacteria that live there get a feast they were not expecting. And they will let you know about it. The old accounts are honest about this, which I appreciate. Daniel Moorman's Ethnobotanical Dictionary of Native Food Plants records that the Dakota boiled these tubers, and that eating too many of them caused wind. An Englishman named John Goodyear set it down in 1621, in language nobody on earth could misunderstand, calling what they produced a filthy, loathsome, stinking wind. 400 years, and the man's review still stands. So picture it. Somebody digs a basket of these, and being proud of it, they put a big, beautiful plate of them on the table, and everybody eats like it is potatoes. Then comes the night they all remember, and that is the last of the sun root in that house, forever. But the old ones ate this root for centuries and did not live that way. Here's how they got around it, and every bit of it still works in your kitchen tonight. The first is time, in the ground and in the pot both. Every week those roots sit out there cold. More of that inulin has already come apart into sugar before it ever reaches your plate. So the ones you dig in February are gentler on you than the ones you dug the week after frost. The second is long, slow heat, and this is the old way exactly. Peoples of the Northwest cooked camas root in earth ovens for a day, 2 days, sometimes longer, and camas stores its sugar the same way this plant does. They were not doing that to be fancy. Long, low heat pulls those chains apart the same way winter does. The kitchen version is a covered dish at 200 degrees for most of the day. 200 degrees, and then you leave it alone. It comes out dark and sweet, closer to a date than a potato. The third is acid. Boiling them in lemon juice or vinegar breaks those chains as well, and it works fast. About 15 minutes for thin slices. You do trade away some of that artichoke flavor for it. Plenty of folks call that a fair price. The fourth is to start small. A few slices this week, a few more the next. Eat a little of it regularly, and most people get along with it fine after a while. The trouble is, almost always, that first big plateful. And go gently here, because I would rather you enjoy this plant than fight it. If you're on medications or your stomach already gives you grief, have a word with your doctor before you add anything new to the table. And if you mean to put a batch up in jars, pickled or any other way, follow current tested canning guidelines for this one. Every time, no shortcuts. So that is the first answer, and notice that it is a solved problem. It has been solved for 1,000 years. Hold on to that, because the reason this plant is not in your grocery store has nothing whatsoever to do with your stomach. The next 3 answers are all about money. The second answer is the skin. A potato builds itself a jacket, a proper corky armor that lets it ride a truck across the country and sit under a grocery light for 3 weeks. This root never grew one. Its skin is thin enough to scrape off with a fingernail, and the minute it comes out of the ground, it starts losing water and shriveling up. Oregon State's growers' information puts a hard number on it. Even held properly, near 32 degrees at close to full humidity, 5 months in you can lose about a fifth of the crop to shrivel and rot. 32 degrees near total humidity, and it still only gives you about 5 months at the outside. Now think about what that means to a grocery chain. A crop that has to come out of the ground by hand, get handled like eggs, ride refrigerated, sell inside of weeks, and it still shows up on the shelf looking like something the dog dug out of the yard. There is no version of that which works in a store, which is not to say nobody sells it. You can find these in a fancy grocery now and then, and in a farmer's market in November, in a little basket by the handful, priced like a rare mushroom. That is worth sitting with for a second. The same plant that grows in a ditch for free, that spreads whether you want it to or not, that nobody will farm, is being sold to city people at a price per pound that would make a potato farmer weep, which tells you how far the ground has drifted from the grocery store in this country. The third answer is uglier, and it is why a lot of American farmers still will not say this plant's name out loud. In the 1980s, when farm country was going under, a company came around selling this root as the next great fuel crop. Ethanol, out of the ground, easy money, plant at one time. The Missouri Department of Conservation tells that story plainly, and there is a whole book written about it called The Great Jerusalem Artichoke Circus. Farmers across 31 states and 3 Canadian provinces put more than $25 million into seed tubers. 31 states. And the market they had all been promised for the harvest did not exist and never had. The men behind it were prosecuted as con artists. The farmers were left standing in fields of a plant nobody would buy, that they now could not get rid of either. And that last part brings us to the fourth answer, which is the one that gets home gardeners. This plant does not know how to stop. The extension people at North Carolina State put it in a number that ought to be printed on a warning label. Plant 1 tuber, and you can expect 20 or more of them the following year. 20 or more, and they do not stay where you put them. Those runners push out a foot or more past the stalk, so the roots are already outside whatever circle you thought you were digging, and every knob you miss, and you will miss some, is a whole new plant come spring. Put this in the middle of your good vegetable rows, and in 3 years, you will not have vegetable rows. You will have a sunroot patch with a few tomatoes in it, briefly. So, it takes over, it will not keep, it cannot chip, and one bad plate turns a person against it for life. That is the whole case against this plant. And every word of it is true. Now here's what the old ones understood, and what we managed to forget. Every single one of those problems is only a problem if you're trying to sell it. Start with the spreading. Native peoples across this land did not fight that habit. They used it. You put this plant exactly where you do not want anything else and where you would be fighting weeds anyway, along the back fence, on the bank that is too steep to mow, the wet corner that floods every spring, down the north side of the barn. It will stand 6 to 10 feet tall out there and break the wind for everything behind it, and those fall flowers will hold your bees and butterflies for weeks after the rest of the garden has given up and gone brown. Then understand this next piece, because it flips the whole thing over. On this plant, the harvest is the weeding. When you dig hard in a spot you want cleared, you are taking the crop and pulling next year's plants in the same motion. When you leave a few knobs behind in a spot you want kept, you have just planted next season and it cost you nothing. Same fork, same afternoon. both jobs done. And when you want it gone from somewhere, you dig it hard 3 winters running and take every piece you can find. Then there's the keeping, and this is where the old way beats the modern one outright. You do not need a cellar for these. The ground is the cellar. Leave them where they grew. Throw a heavy blanket of leaves or straw over the patch before the hard freeze so you can still get a fork into it, and then go dig up a meal's worth whenever you want a meal's worth. They come out of frozen February, dirt, crisp and sweet, and there's nothing to buy and nothing running in the basement all winter to keep them that way. The old accounts describe exactly this: food deliberately left standing in the ground, because ground that is already cold is the finest storage anybody ever built. Which brings us all the way back around to the question on the front of this video. Why does nobody plant it? People do. They just do not sell it. And somewhere along the line in this country, we quietly started believing those two things were the same. This plant fails every test a market has. It will not ride a truck or hold a shelf, and it will not come out of the ground on any schedule a buyer can plan a year around. You cannot patent it because it plants itself, and you cannot sell a man's seed for it twice, because after the first season, he has more than he can dig. There was never a dime in it for anybody, so nobody ever got around to telling you it was there. It is not that this plant failed. It is that it cannot be turned into a business. And we have quit calling a thing food if there is no money in the middle of it. But hold it up against the only test the old ones cared about, which is whether there is something to eat in February. And this is one of the finest plants on the continent. It asks for nothing and survives what kills a garden. It stores itself in the ground, and it feeds you through the exact stretch of the year when the shelves are thin and the money is thinner. Selu, the Cherokee word for corn, needed tending and rain and good ground and a season that cooperated. This one needed a person to know it was standing there, and now you do. And that's how the ground gets worked in the Native American way of the garden, from reading your dirt in the spring clear through to putting the whole place to bed in the fall. Start cure. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera and point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you will enjoy the video right now on screen even more. I can assure you on that. Click it right now, my friend.